The props that we will use to access our hamstrings, we'll use a yoga strap and a long resistance band. If you have one with handles, that will work as well. If you don't have a long resistance band, a yoga strap will work. 2 yoga blocks, and then a blanket. And we will be sitting on the blanket, but we'll also be using it to slide. If you don't have a yoga blanket, or if you have gliders or paper plates, that might work on carpet, or socks on a hard floor also work. So we're going to start with awareness of where the hamstrings are. And we're going to come to a standing position for that. So you can have your feet as far apart as is comfortable for you. We are going to start with just a forward fold with our knees bent, and you're going to glide your hands up and down the backs of your thighs, both going down the outside of your thighs and also reaching between your thighs and gliding up and down. And you can go at your own pace. And what we're really looking for here is just to feel, where are your hamstrings? And your hamstrings are the muscles on the backs of your thighs. You have 3 different hamstring muscles that comprise the hamstring group. And oftentimes you will have one or all of them that are tight. So we're going to explore these a little bit. So come up to stand. And we're going to first start with the hands on the backs of the thighs on the outside. And you're going to come into a forward fold position and start with your hands right at the tops of your thighs. And you're just going to start to bend and straighten your knees. You can let your head hang. And the touch on the backs of your thighs is just really light. And you might kind of explore, do you feel something move under your hands? You might take them wider to the outside of your legs. You might take them inside. And then you might start to move them down closer to the backs of your knees. So your hamstrings attach to the tops of your sit bones. And they come all the way down. 2 of them attach on the outside of your knees, actually on the lower legs. So if you take your fingertips right behind the outsides of your knees, kind of your first fingers maybe on the lower leg and your pinkies on the outer edge, and then turn your toes out. So you're like duck foot. And then straighten your knees, and you may feel a little tension and the release of tension. And then go ahead and come up. And we're going to walk around just so we don't get dizzy. And then we're going to explore the inside hamstring muscle. So for that one, again, stand with your feet apart. This time we're going to go pigeon-toed, so toes will point in. You're going to take your hands between your thighs, on the inside of your thighs, and start first just at the top, right where your sit bones are. And if you bend and straighten your knees and move your hips back and forth, you might feel a little tension there. But if you bring your hands behind your knees, you might feel with your toes pointing in that you feel that tension that happens as you bend your knees. The hamstring muscle where it attaches at the bottom, so closer to the knee, actually flexes your knees. Good. Go ahead and come up. And then we're going to come to a seated position. I'm going to move my mat out of the way so that you can see me, but we are going to slide our feet. So if you have the plates or the gliders or your socks.
Can I sit on my block, Or do I have to sit on the blanket?
You can absolutely sit on your block, Lisa. Thanks for asking. We're going to start with the yoga strap. No, we're not. We're doing that later. We are just going to glide our foot out and in. And as you're gliding out, forward, and back, bring your hands to the backs of your thighs, closer to where your knee flexes. And if you just rest your finger in that region with your toes pointing straight up, as you push your heel down actively into whatever you're using to glide with, you may feel that those muscles contract as you pull in. As you push it out, continue to push the foot down slowly and see if you can feel tension there too. So as you straighten the leg, push the heel down into the ground and see if you can go slow enough that you feel that the muscle is tight, even though it's lengthening. So to access the different muscles, we're going to start first with turning the foot out. So like a windshield wiper, the ankle stays flexed, but it turns out. Take your hand and bring it behind the outside of your knee. And then start to straighten slowly. Feel it tense as you straighten it. And then push down as you drag the heel in as well. So just notice, can you feel that the muscle stays tight or hard, constricted, both on the straight and bend? And just to feel what it feels like on the inside, bring it to the inside as well. And you might not feel as much tension on the inside. When we turn the foot out, we are basically trying to use the hamstring muscles that attach on the outside. So obviously, if we want to find the inside, we're going to keep the ankle flexed, point the toes in, and push down and drag, both as you straighten and bend. And you'll feel a little bit more tension as you turn the foot in to the inside. And you can bring the outside hand and feel with the foot pointing in, you don't feel quite the same tension. And if you don't feel anything, that's fine too. Just know that that's kind of what we're going to be aiming for throughout this class, is to try to get some awareness of these muscles. So switch to the other leg. First with the toes pointing straight up, but the ankle is flexed, so pulling the toes towards your head. And with the toes pointing up, bending and straightening, maybe you notice with the hands behind the knees that you tend to use one of the hamstrings more when the lower leg is in neutral. Like for example, when I have my toes pointing up on my left leg, I can feel the hamstring muscles on the inside of my leg, but I don't really feel them on the outside. You may feel something different. Keep the knee pointing straight up, but turn the lower leg out and push down, drag in, all the time trying to press the foot into the floor because that's going to activate the hamstring muscle more. And see if you can feel the outer hamstring muscle work a little bit more. And I am starting to feel it, but it's still not as strong as it was on my right leg. And then keep the knee pointing up, but turn the lower leg in so the toes point in, and see if you can feel the inner hamstring muscles work. And these to me are really strong. And just a little bit of history, like my left leg gives me more issues. So I always find it interesting when I notice inconsistencies on each side. Good. So that's our awareness section. We're going to now come onto the floor. You want to have your yoga strap close by. You'll use a blanket or a block to support your head. and come onto your back. I'll start first by just bringing awareness to our breath and to a neutral spine. So we'll start where we frequently start, in that pelvic tilt. So as you exhale, move your lower back towards the floor. So moving your spine, lower spine into flexion. And then as you inhale, just allow your lower back to lift over the floor. So you're not trying to hyperextend or hyper arch your back on the inhalations, just trying to kind of allow it to come back to neutral. But each exhalation, lower back moving towards the floor, your pubic bone is moving towards your belly button to help create that flexion in your lower back. You can do this with an exhale. Sometimes it helps to use candle's breath, that blowing out through your lips as you exhale, to help to create that sense of tension or tensing in your lower abdominal area for stability. Then we're going to start to take this a little higher. So we're going to move from a pelvic tilt into a bridge. So sometimes we lift up into a bridge with the whole spine moving as one in neutral. This time we're going to segmentally lift the hips by peeling your lower back first away from the floor, one vertebrae at a time, and then allow the mid back, the bottom of the rib cage, that section to peel off one vertebrae at a time, until you lift maybe all the way up to the segment of your spine that is in line with the tips, the bottom tips of your shoulder blades. And then from there, start to roll back down one vertebrae at a time. Sometimes I think it's helpful if I push from the front side using my hands, one segment of my spine back down to the floor at a time. And we're going to go from back up into bridge just a few more times in the same way. So start it with the exhale, push the lower back into the floor, and then start to peel the hips off, and then peel one segment of your spine off at a time until you lift as high as you can. Pull the heels towards your shoulder blades at the top. Feel that connection to your hamstrings. And then keep your hamstrings active as you start to, again, press one section of your vertebrae back down to the floor at a time. If it helps to use your hands and your fingertips to kind of encourage that segment, I like that. One more time on your own. Peel up. At the top, push your feet down, drag the heels. They're not moving, but as if you're dragging the heels towards your shoulder blades. Feel the hamstrings, keep that connection, roll back down again. This time, roll your chin in towards your chest, like you're trying to take your forehead to the top of your chest. Roll up into a crunch, one vertebrae at a time. You can lift only as high as you feel you want to. And once you reach that highest level, then peel back down. Really connecting to feeling as if one segment of your spine is moving at a time. Once the head lands, curl from the hips up again into bridge. Going slow enough. You can really feel the spine move. Rolling back down. Once the hips land, tuck the chin in and up towards your throat, forehead towards the top of your chest, then peel up to a crunch, one vertebrae at a time. Go as high as you can before you release back down. And we'll do this combo one more time. So as you move through it this last time on your own, stay connected. Really notice if you can sense that feeling of slow movement all the way through the spine. And completing with the crunch up. And once you come back onto your back, just allow your spine to rest in neutral, remembering that the lower back, when we're in neutral, is not pressing into the floor, it's slightly above the floor. So we just use that roll up to bridge and crunch as a way to address our spine, so we have a little bit more access to find neutral. And then take your band, your yoga strap, and wrap it around the ball of your right foot. We're going to start with our left knee bent and the foot on the ground. Grab the belt in both of your hands, with your hands reaching towards your foot. So your elbows kind of start off straight. This helps to create the tension in the band. And then you're going to bring the knee to bend with the shin parallel. Use the strap and pulling with the hands to pull the knee closer to your chest, and then move towards straightening your leg. So we did this last week, just kind of pushing in and out, bending the knee towards your right shoulder, and then pushing the foot into the band to move towards straightening your leg. And it's not necessarily important that you fully straighten your knee, more that you have that awareness of your pelvis lying flat on the floor and the low back slightly off the floor. So you're keeping your spine and your pelvis in neutral and trying to create flexion inside your hip joint. So the hamstrings oftentimes will be tight, and when we move the hip joint, oftentimes the pelvis and the spine will move because there's no capacity to move the hip joint separate from our pelvis. So this is just kind of priming our hip so that we can feel like we can move the hip joint where the leg bone sits in that hip socket separately from the pelvis and the spine. Good. And straighten the leg wherever you can. So if it's further away from your head, that's fine. And actually, if there's a bend to begin with, that's also fine. Grab your strap just in your right hand. So you can take both ends of the straps together and your right hand is grabbing it. You can keep your left knee bent or perhaps straighten the left leg to the ground, but keep your lower back in neutral. We're just going to start taking the right leg over to the left, only as far as you can without your pelvis lifting off the floor. So actually switch the strap into your left hand and take your right hand and place it underneath your right buttocks. And as you drop and then lift back over your right hip, keep your right butt on your right hand. So you want just the movement initially to come from the hip joint. And then the next time you drop the left, stay there and start to bend and straighten your knee in this position. And if it doesn't fully straighten, that's okay. But your hip is the back of your pelvis is still kind of touching your right hand. And then straighten the right leg. And now turn the foot out and in. And as you turn the foot out and in, let the whole leg turn out and in too. And you may start to feel a stretch on the back of your leg, the back of the hip. The knee can be bent or straight, so whatever is more comfortable for you. And then pause where you feel the most intensity, but not pain. So you don't want to feel pain, but a really good stretch. And then you will let your hip come off the floor. Not going all the way to the floor. The leg doesn't go all the way to the floor, but just where you feel that you're getting a nice, steady, passive stretch in the hip and the back of the hamstring. Bend your right knee. Lift the right leg back up. Bring your hands behind your thighs this time. And as you straighten your leg or move towards straight, push the back of your thigh into your hands to move towards straightening your leg. And notice how that hamstring engages as you reach your right heel up towards the sky. Good. Lower the right leg beside the left and just pause for a moment to notice the difference between the right and the left. And some of us typically have one hamstring that we are more aware of than the other. And then we're going to do that on the other side. So bend both knees to begin with. Grab the belt and wrap the belt around the ball of your left foot. Find neutral in your low back and pelvis flat on the floor. And first we just start with bending the knee in towards the chest and pushing the ball of the foot into the strap to prime the hip and the hamstrings for movement that is separate from our pelvis and our spine. So as you're doing this, you're keeping your spine nice and still. You don't feel it going closer and further away from the floor. It just stays still. And the back of the pelvis rests flat on the floor. And go ahead and straighten the leg, or you can have it slightly bent. Grab across with your right hand to grab both ends of the belt. You can either keep your right leg bent or straighten it to the ground. You're just going to start to let it fall over to the right, using your left hand underneath your left buttocks as a way to notice that the pelvis is staying still, and just allowing this movement to happen in the hip joint. And on this side, I feel a stretch more on the outside of my leg than I do on the inside of my leg. Next time you drop it over, stay there. Bend and straighten your knee with the left leg crossing horizontally over your right leg. Left hip is still on the floor. Good. And then either with the knee bent or straight, you're going to start to turn the foot in and out, but notice that the movement is coming also from the leg bone and the hip joint. And for me on the left side, like this is really awkward. Where on the right side, it was pretty easy. So I'm starting to notice some trends in my own body. So just start to notice what trends you feel. And then find where you feel the most sensation. It's not pain, but just a stretch. And then allow the left hip to come off the floor as you go over and back. And then pause, either turning the foot in or out, wherever you found the most sensation, and hold it there for a couple of breaths. Good. So we found awareness. Where are our hamstrings? We've started to create some access to more mobility. Now we're going to start to activate. So I'm going to fold my mat up so that I have a slippery surface since I don't have a lot of space. But we will have our blanket or our gliders right where the mat and the floor meet. We're going to have blocks close by on either side. And we're going to come back to lie on the ground with your butt right at the edge of your mat so that your feet can be on your blanket. And go ahead and recline back. If you need something under your head, you can put one of your blocks if you're using your blanket to glide, or if you're comfortable with your head on the floor, that's fine. So first time we do leg extensions, gliding, and a hip bridge. We're going to do both feet at the same time. This will progressively get more challenging. You have the option to progress or not progress. So monitor that as you're able to. So first, we're going to lift the hips up into bridge all at one time. So no longer segmentally, just hips up. Peel the forefoot, so the toes, off the blanket or off the floor, and then push the heels down hard. Keep the hips as high as they are as you straighten your legs slowly. And when I say slowly, I mean you want to feel your hamstrings working to keep that slow. Once the legs are straight, you can drop your hips to the floor and pull the feet back in. Lift the hips back up. Push the heels down into the blanket, lift the toes, and slowly stretch your legs straight. Try to keep the hips high off the floor as you can, and your pelvis pretty steady. So if it helps to bring your hands to the sides of your hips, you don't want to feel a lot of jiggling of the hips side to side or pelvis moving up or down. Once the butt lands, pull it back in. We're going to do 2 more like that. So going at a speed that is good for you. If by chance you feel your hamstrings cramp, don't be scared. We are actually trying to activate our hamstrings and engage them. And if this is not an action that your hamstrings do a lot, they may cramp. So just be aware of that. Good. I have one more. Just kind of notice where you are. If you are finished with your first 4, you have an option to progress it. You can keep the hips lifted as you pull the feet back close to the hips. That will definitely create a cramp of some sort. So we're going to do 2 more. Option to do it the way that you have been doing it, or option to keep the hips lifted as they are long and quickly pull the feet back in. So we are working with eccentric contraction to lengthen and strengthen our hamstrings. When you're done, pull your knees in towards your chest. Let the low back round towards the floor, rock a little side to side. And just a quick little stretch. Grab the outer edges of your feet and happy baby. And that's going to be a really interesting happy baby for you. I see that perhaps this is not as fun as you want it to be. Welcome to the hamstrings. They are better served when they work. So just know that if something is not comfortable and you need a break, please take the option to take a break. Next, we're going to move to one block. You're going to place the block underneath the ball of your right foot. The heel will not be on a surface. And then you're going to pull your left knee in towards your chest. First, give the left leg a little extra stretch. So interlace your hands behind your thigh and just bend and straighten the right knee. Don't worry about the lower back. If it's pressing towards the floor, that's fine. You might also point and flex the ankle. Good. And then keep the knee over your hip, closer to your chest than foot towards the floor. We're going to press through the ball of your left foot to lift into bridge pose. So lift up and then down. We're going to do 5 just like this. So press the ball of the foot down, lift the hips into bridge, and then lower them down. As you go through this, again, steady the sides of your pelvis so your core is engaged. You can use that candle's breath blowing out as you lift your hips. And then on your fifth one, lift your hips and stay there and come high onto the ball of your toes and then lower the heel towards the ground. Keep the hips high, lift high onto the ball of your toes, lower the heels down. So another way to engage the hamstrings. One more. Lower it down, pull both knees in. Grab the outer edges of your feet, happy baby. Maybe move towards straightening that right leg. Switch the block over to the ball of your left foot. Pull the right knee in towards your chest. Hand behind the thigh. Bend and straighten the left knee or right knee. And then point and flex the ankle. Good. Let the knee fall towards your shoulder. So deep flex in your right hip. Press to the ball of your left foot to lift into the bridge and then lower down. So 4 more just like that, lift and lower. Keeping your pelvis still. Spine more or less in neutral, so your rib cage and your pelvis kind of create a mirror of each other. They're stacked. Stay high on the fifth and lift high onto the ball of your right or left foot, and then take the heel closer to the floor. And just do that 3 or 4 times. Feel that awareness of your hamstring. Good. Release the hips, bring both feet in, soles of the feet together, grab the outer edge of the feet, maybe moving to straighten and bend just the left knee. Awesome. Bring both knees in towards your chest, rock a little side to side. We're just going to do 3 of these. We're going to go back to the glider. We're going to have it just underneath our right foot. If this feels like it would be too intense, go back to the 2-legged, right? So if you had a really hard time gliding with 2 feet, continue to just do 2 feet. So left knee stays over your left hip, falling towards your left shoulder. Press up into bridge. Push the left foot or right foot into the floor to straighten. Let the hips fall. Drag it back in. Lift. Push down through the heel. Straighten the leg. Lower. Pull it back in. Last time. Heel presses down. Slowly straighten the right leg. Keep the hips as high as you can. Fully straighten before you drag and switch. Last 3. Lift. Push. And I am always amazed at how different my 2 sides behave. Nice work. So when you have completed the 3 single leg glides, hip bridges, pull the knees in, really allow the low back to flex towards the floor. Grab the outer edges of your feet. First, start by pushing the knees out. And then coming back into that happy baby. And you may try to straighten both legs. Don't force that. I always think it's interesting to test out what you do have, because I feel this is a great way to kind of monitor. Are we creating a little bit more length in our hamstrings? Awesome. Roll up. We're going to come to hands and knees now. So you're going to have 2 blocks. We still are going to be gliding. So if you need a surface to kneel on, and that surface is your blanket, you may want something else to glide your foot on. But the knees will be on the mat or a blanket. Hands underneath your shoulders or wrist underneath your shoulders. Just going to start with a few cat-cows. Moving segmentally again. So first start by tucking your tailbone, rounding through your low back, letting the flexion trickle up between your shoulder blades, dropping the head. Keep your head tucked, looking towards your belly. As you lift and spread your sit bones, move one vertebrae at a time. Going into extension, the head's the last to lift. Head stays lift as you start to round through your low back. Let it trickle up. And again, one vertebrae at a time into extension. Find neutral. So you're neither too far flexed or too far extended. So somewhere in between. Remember, slight curve of your low back. Tuck your toes under and hover your knees off the floor. Yep, keep the knees bent and then push your head towards your feet. So kind of like down dog, but with knees bent. Come back to hover the knees over the floor. And then look at your feet and push your head towards your feet. Good, one more like that. Coming back to that hovering bear or quadruped, keep the knees bent and just flex in the hips, lift and spread your sit bones and lower it back down. Take your band. We're going to place the band around the arch of your right foot and the band on the inside of your thigh. So not out here, but on the inside of your thigh. You're going to grab the other end of your band with your left hand and come back into quadruped. It depends on how much resistance you have. You might be able to wrap your band around your wrist. So your right foot is going to be on something slippery. We have a neutral pelvis, neutral spine. We're going to push the foot straight back. Let it glide. And then you're going to balance and lift the foot. Foot back to the glider. Pull the knee back into where you began. So watch for a second. I'm going to show you a couple of things that I want you to try to resist doing. The tendency tends to be that people think that they need to lift as high as they can. And if I do that, you notice I am moving my pelvis and I have to arch my back. Less is definitely more here. We want to feel the hamstrings be the thing that lifts the leg. So when I lift, I barely lift because I don't want my pelvis or my back to arch. I want to feel my hamstring be the thing that lifts my leg. So we're going to do that a total of 8 times. So straighten back, find your hamstring, lift, and then lower. Good. You really want to push through the heel to straighten the leg. And the straighter the leg is, the more you're actually going to access the hamstring instead of something else. So push the leg back as straight as you can. Only lift the leg as high as you can, keeping your knees straight. Neck is long. Spine is long. Tune in. Can you find, if you got a cramp while we were doing those little things on the blocks of the glider on our back, can you use that muscle to lift the leg? Let's do one more. Come up. Remove the band off of your foot. just lay it off to the side. We're going to go now to just have the yoga belt somewhere close by. All of us are going to have a different ability to move into this position, but my toes are tucked, and I'm pushing my hips back towards my heels. Sometimes it helps to sit on a block. Sometimes it helps to put a blanket. More or less what we're looking for is, can we make it so that the pelvis is kind of locked back towards our hips? And then take your band, your yoga strap, and place it in your low back only. Bring your hands onto both of the blocks where the yoga band is really taut. And then you're just gonna bend, flex, by pushing that part of your low back into the strap and pull it away. So we're trying to keep the pelvis mostly still and just move the spine towards and away from the yoga strap. A lot of times hamstrings, we just can't move the spine separately from the pelvis. And oftentimes our hamstrings just stay locked in place. So freeing the spine, moving the spine independently is part of hamstring work. And then go ahead and move the belt. Take the blocks off to either side. You can move the blanket. And we're just gonna step. So hands on your hips, lean back. We're gonna step the right leg forward into a lunge and then step it back. So sitting back and then step and then come back. Same leg, right leg, forward and back. And if this doesn't work for you, you have the little blocks there to help you to move forward and back. And if that still doesn't work, just do the best that you can. You can always have your knees on a blanket if this is uncomfortable. And then the last time you step forward, stay forward. So you can either have the back toe tucked or untucked. It's up to you. We're going to start to sense strength in the front hamstring. So legs are about hip distance apart. So your right foot is not in line with your right knee. It's in line, or left knee, it's in line with your right hip. Start by bringing your awareness to your right foot. Press it hard into the floor. So down, and then as if you were going to scrape that foot back. So feel the big toe, the little toe, and the center of the heel with equal weight, and drag your right heel back. It won't move, but as if you're trying to peel it out of glue. At the same time, squeeze your left glute and push where the pocket of your pant would be forward. So this creates like a scissor action of your inner thighs. You may feel the right hamstring engage and your left butt and quad engage. Bring both arms over your head. Continue this strong awareness of the lower limbs as you twist towards your right leg. Right hand will reach behind you, left arm forward, and then lift up. Back to facing forward. Yep. We're going to do that 4 more times. So feet and knee, press and drag, and then twist. Both arms up. So ideally, you're using the action of the right hamstring and the left max and quad to stabilize your lower body so you can twist just your ribs. Good. One more time. Stay here. And bring the hands back to your chest. Tuck your left toe under. Hands to your hips. Boom, both of your hips, and you can use blocks too. Bring your hips towards your heel and then come back and create that scissor action. So hips back towards your left heel. Squeeze to lift. As you squeeze to lift, think of pressing your left pocket forward and scissoring your inner thighs together. So left knee is pressing forward, left heel is dragging back. You got a lot going on here. Good. Let's do one more. And then give our knees a break. So hands to the floor. Come up onto your toes. And then back into downward facing dog. Downward facing dog is not where you want to be. Child's pose is another option. But bend and straighten each knee if you're in downward facing dog. You can also choose to roll on your back and just hug both of your knees into your chest and maybe try to bend and straighten your knees from there. So we're going to lower back onto our knees. Same leg is going to be out in front. So right leg out in front. This time we're going to actually crawl the right leg forward so that the right leg is straight. So like so. And then point and flex your ankle. So like you're pressing your foot onto a gas pedal and lifting off. And then roll the leg out. So the toes are now pointing out, but it's happening all the way up into your hip. And then roll it as far in as you can. So instead of just rolling the ankle, can you feel this movement come all the way up and down your entire right leg? Come back to center. This is challenging. Option. Lift the leg off the ground. Push the foot down. Slide it forward. Slide it back. Roll the leg out. Option. Lift the leg up. Lower it down. Slide it forward. Slide it back. Roll the leg in. Option. Lift it up. Lower. Slide it out. Slide it in. Okay. Bring both knees together. Hands to the floor. Downward facing dog. You can do this with knees bent or straight. Reach the left heel to the ground. Feel that hamstring. Come up onto both toes. Lift your right heel to the ground. Feel that hamstring. Shift forward to plank or tabletop. Push yourself away from the floor. Lift your hips away from the floor. Stay on your left toes. Lift your right leg straight and away from the floor. Lower the right leg. Lower the knees. Come all the way down onto your belly. Bend your right knee. Lift the right knee off the ground, reaching your foot over to the left. And then roll all the way up to a seated position. I'm going to switch my position so you can see. Grab your band. Band around the ball of your right foot. Straighten the right leg. lift it. Lower the right leg, drag it in. 2 more times. Straighten the right leg, lift it. Lower, drag it in. Last time, push the foot into the band to straighten, lift it, lower, pull it in. Good. Let's do the other side. So starting on your knees, sit back on your heels. We're going to do the step forward. Oh, wait, we're doing quadruped first. So ball, wrap the band around the arch of your left foot and take it inside of your left knee and wrap it around your wrist or hold it. Foot on the glider. Push the leg straight. Remember, pelvis continues to face towards the floor. Only lift as high as you feel your hamstring is doing the work to lift the leg. So push straight, keep straight, lift, toe off the ground. And if you notice, I'm really not lifting it high. And staying within that range of I just want my hamstring to lift my leg will actually give me more awareness than trying to lift it as high as I possibly can. Not that that's wrong, because that's a hip extension using the glutes. We're using the glutes a little bit here, but this is more hamstring focus, right? Do one more. Slide the knees back together. Release the band. And then sit the hips back towards the heels. Come up. You can either use your blocks or just step left foot forward. Step it back. Left foot forward. Step it back. And again, as I do this on my left side, I notice that on my left leg, it's harder for me to go straight forward and back. I have to kind of take the leg out to the side. I'm trying to stay in that sagittal plane, but it's harder on my left side. Next time you come up, stay up. Start to push right knee forward, drag left heel back. You want to feel your right glute and quad helping you push this right leg forward and your hamstring engaging to pull your left heel back. Reach both arms over your head beside your ears. And then keep your lower body locked in as you twist towards your left leg. And then up. So 4 more times of the twist. Keep awareness. Are you remaining active? Left hamstring, right glute quad to stabilize the lower body so you can better move your upper body independently. Come up. You can either have your hands on your blocks or hands on your hips. We're going to take right sit bone back towards right hip, heel, and then squeeze it forward. Like if you had a pocket, you're pushing that pocket forward as you're dragging your left heel to feel that action of scissors of your inner thighs. You don't have to fully straighten that front leg. It's more that action of foot and knee pulling towards each other to activate. Good, stay up. Then grab your blocks. And we're gonna straighten the left leg out in front of us. If you need a knee break, come to downward facing dog. Or just come with the left leg straight out in front of you. And start to turn the whole leg in and out. So feel it all the way up in your hip joint. So you're not just windshield wipering the foot. You are moving the whole leg. I know I have 2 people in here that have knee things, and I applaud you both for staying on your knees as long as you can. Try not to move your hips. So from the back, if you look, my hips aren't going side to side. It's just the leg itself. Trying to feel that the leg bone is rolling in the hip socket. And then roll it forward, toes point up, push down into the block. Maybe you try to lift the leg. Heel down, drag it in, push it straight. Turn the leg out, lift. Lower, drag it in, push it out. In, lift, lower, drag it in, push it out. Bring the leg all the way back in. Hands to the floor, downward facing dog. Come up onto both toes. Bend your left knee, right heel down. Maybe if the heel lands, you lift the toes, keep the sit bones high. Come up onto both toes, lower your left heel. If the heel lands, maybe you lift the toes. Lower. Walk forward either to hands and knees or to plank. Strong core, long spine, lift and hover your left leg only. So hamstring lifts it. Toes come back down, knees to the floor, lower all the way down onto your belly. Then bend your left knee. Lift the left knee off the floor, reach it all the way over to the right until you come into a seated position. And straighten the left leg. Grab your band, wrap it around the ball of your foot. Left leg straight, lift, lower, drag it in, turn the toes out, straight, lift, lower, turn the toes in, straight, lift, lower, drag it in. We're going to come up to standing. One more thing. So you're going to still have your bands. I'm going to wrap the band around the ball of your right foot. You're going to hold the 2 ends of your bands in your fist with your elbows at your side. This is where you may need the wall. If you need the wall for balance, you can use the wall for balance. Bring your weight onto your left foot. Bend your right knee as far up as you can, and then push it back down with the heel going down first. So push and then bend. Push and bend. One more like this. And then watch, because it's hard to watch and balance. So as you straighten this time, slight bend of the left knee, push the right leg behind you. And it doesn't matter how far. I just want your hamstring to work, to reach the leg behind you, and to lift it up slightly behind you. So let the knee come all the way in. And then as you straighten your back leg behind you, your front body moves parallel to the floor out in front of you. Try to go to where your leg is straight. So it's more about, can you straighten the leg? So even if it's just tapping your toe to the ground behind you, that's using more of your hamstring than doing this, right? So don't think how high can you get your foot. Think how far behind you can you get your leg straight, even if that's taking your toe to the ground. Right. And you can feel we're also working that left hip. So let's finish with the left side. So band around the ball of your left foot. Stand on your right leg. First start with just bending the knee towards your chest and pushing the heel towards the floor to straighten the leg. So I like to push it out a little bit in front so I can get that full extension of the knee. So the hamstrings bend the knee, and to strengthen it in that lengthened position, we add tension, so the band, as we straighten the knee. The hamstrings also extend the hip. So that's that pushing the leg behind you to take your hip into extension as you also straighten your knee. So we are actively asking our knee to help us create hip extension and knee extension. Something that's very important when we walk, right? Each step that we take. Good. Lisa, I like your finishing pose. Down dog is an option. Another option is just to simply come into a wide leg forward fold. So stepping your feet as wide apart or as narrow as you like. Hands can be on the floor or a block. Knees can be slightly bent. Then lift your sit bones and think of pressing the leg bone that's deep inside your thigh into your thigh muscles. If the legs become straight, awesome. If not, don't worry about it. But whether it be down dog or whether it be this wide leg forward fold, just stay here and think about trying to create relaxed length in your hamstring muscles. And just notice the difference between when you began and where you are now. And know, as I warned you before, you may feel some residual sensation over the next few days. Some signs that you work some muscles that you might not be used to working. And when you're done, if you want to come to a seated position and just try butterfly pose. The inner hamstring muscle can affect butterfly pose. Just notice if you have a little bit more space there. If you want to try one leg at a time behind you, you may find that you have a little bit more space on your hamstrings in an internally rotated position. Just make sure you do both sides. And this concludes Hello Hammies. So hello Hammies and good night Hammies. Thank you.